morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor for myself to be invited here to address your 73rd annual membership meeting. Brief introduction about Star Agritech. We have been in the industry for a decade now. At the beginning, we established ourselves as a tobacco trader. And now, we have transformed ourselves as a derivatives manufacturing. Derivatives, namely nanofiber reconstituted tobacco, which is the best kind in the world, and Star is the only company who has access to this product. We have structured this presentation which outlines the FCV tobacco industry and trends, followed by an in-depth analysis of leaf and its supply chain. This chart shows the major players in the cigarette world. And this area, shown as others, is where Star is specialized. In general, all around the world, the cigarette manufacturers are changing into low-cost blend types. And this mentality is guiding them to buy more derivatives, buy more cost-friendly flavored tobaccos, and more filler tobaccos. Since US FCV is the most expensive FCV in the world, it is extremely difficult to market it to this area. In 2015, the global tobacco industry was approximately 6 trillion sticks. If you compare this to the recent numbers from 2019, you can see that it has declined to 5.4 trillion sticks, which is a 10% of decrease. This directly correlates to the decline in tobacco leaf requirement by cigarette manufacturers. The major reasons for the decline in combustible cigarettes are as following: increasing taxes, advertising limitations, smokers' freedom, substitute products, and increasing health awareness. At the beginning of the decade, the total global leaf production was 7 million tons. Today, it is approximately 5 million tons according to the numbers from 2019. However, the decline is not only to the decline of the combustible cigarette, but it's also due to global economic slowdown. For example, Argentina peso today is 60 to $1, or India is experiencing the slowest growth rate since 2011, or the volatility in the African continent. US-China trade war, disrupting the trade doctrine. Climate change, hurricanes on eastern seaboard, or the volcanic eruptions in Southeast Asia. One happened very recently in the Philippines. As a known fact for a while, China was sitting on a massive surplus of tobacco inventory from the previous years. I think it goes back to the beginning of the decade. As a conclusion, they needed to stop producing big amounts. Instead, they were focused on using their current inventory for their local consumption and exporting big quantities with very small values. Lately, their inventory got small enough for them to become not so generous to export as insanely as usual. China, who is also the biggest market for US flue-cured, is close to make a deal with the US government regarding taxes of some particular products, which includes tobacco as well. In what stage are they at the moment? Dr. Sandy, thank you, knows much better. But I think even this news sets a brighter future for the US flue-cured exports compared to last year. The total crop of Zimbabwe FCV is normally around 250 million kilos, and it has been going stable like that for a while now. That being said, This year, Zimbabwe Tobacco Association expects a 12% decrease of the crop, which makes it 220 million kilos. As a big competitor of US FCV, this year, Zimbabwe is in extremely bad shape economically, and it has been building towards this for a while now. What we anticipate from a macro perspective is that they are bankrupt as a country, with very limited resources, especially in terms of electricity and fuel. These things have the utmost importance in terms of exporting the tobacco overseas, let alone for the people to have at least some standard of living in their daily routine. Even though we hope the best for the people who live there, in our opinion, Zimbabwe will face big troubles to match the tobacco demand in the upcoming years, starting from 2020. Recently, very recently, we hear news about the manufacturers experience power cuts up to 20 hours every single day. And they have to import fuel from South Africa. We believe nobody knows how long it can last. Let me have the liberty to draw a picture for you to understand the situation more clearly. Without electricity, there would be no threshing of the tobacco. Without fuel, there would be no use of generators, or no transporting the tobacco from the barn to the auction area, or from the factory to the port, which may provide the US FCV the momentum they deserve. Tanzania could be a relative alternative for Zimbabwe FCV in terms of quality. However, the crop was only 70 million kilos in 2019, and we anticipate that it will get even smaller in 2020, meaning that it cannot be a reliable substitute for Zimbabwe or US. Brazil remains the biggest FCV producer in the world, with 605 million kilos in 2019. For 2020, the projected volume is 565 million kilos due to excessive rainfalls in the months of October and November in Rio Grande do Sul, accompanied with high winds and hailstorms. The crop is highly affected. With current conditions, Brazil seems to be the strongest competitor of US FCV. Argentina flue-cured is very similar with Brazil flue-cured in terms of characteristic properties. However, the crop is only 1/10 of the Brazil crop with 65 million kilos, which is not enough to fulfill the demands as Brazil or US. In conclusion, with the shortfall crop of 30 million in Zimbabwe, let's say 20 million in Tanzania and 40 in Brazil, it creates a void of 90 million kilos of US FCV leaf opportunities for export in 2020. I would like to spare some time to say a few words about the Tobacco Associates, which we believe is doing tremendous work in terms of marketing, global marketing, and connecting the US farmers with the rest of the world. I personally know as a fact that it created good awareness in Asian and European markets with their study programs and training programs. As STAR, when we travel all around the world every single year, we can clearly observe the benefits of these kinds of organizations in terms of marketing, in terms of gathering global intelligence, and especially networking. I would like to thank Hank Mozingo for calling us up here, who is a wonderful person. Thank you, Hank. To summarize, as you can see from the presentation so far, that US-China trade war has toppled the US leaf demand, which has been counterbalanced by Brazil, Argentina, and Zimbabwe until now. Even though the tobacco production in general has decreased, the demand for the South American leaf has increased exponentially. CTI even went public to be able to buy more tobacco from South America. Southern Africa is plunged into corruption and economic mismanagement. With the lack of proper infrastructure in Zimbabwe, which we talked about, such as electricity and fuel, the supply chain, the supply capacity looks very exhausted. I would like to conclude this presentation by emphasizing that we at STAR continuously work to identify the growth opportunities in the industry. Apart from tobacco leaf, we have heavily invested in the development of reconstituted tobacco. By the end of 2020, STAR will be the second biggest private reconstituted tobacco manufacturer in the world. We have come a long way in 1 decade from a company operating in a 2-bedroom apartment to a company with 6 international offices, 2 production plants, 20 warehouses and 200 people. We just hope that this growth will serve you and the rest of the world, tobacco world, good. Thank you.